so they wouldn't, challenge me. So, okay, here we go. Brian said, perfect, ready to go now. Brian's ready to go. We'll call you, and I'll just call you.
Call in 3 minutes.
Call you in 3 minutes. Call you in 3 minutes.
Yep.
3 minutes. All right.
Ready?
Yes.
Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. You know our show. It's where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, longtime radio sports personality. Today's show is going to be very interesting. Who's our guest today?
Well, we got a talk show host. Sports talk radio is a big deal, and when you do morning sports talk on, the radio, you kind of have to mix it up a little bit with a little more entertainment because your audience is a little larger. So Brian Murphy, who is a local sports writer, worked with the San Francisco Chronicle for a number of years, has written a number of books, and now has made the transition to broadcasting. Does mornings at KNBR, the all sports 50,000 watt flamethrower, the sports leader. So I used to work there. I was there 18 years. He's going to join us, and we're going to talk some generic sports, some Olympic basketball and golf, and maybe a little baseball thrown in.
All right. Yeah, KNBR is a very large venue.
Oh,
you can
boy.
hear it all over the
Yeah,
place.
it's got a huge signal, clear channel, 50,000 watts.
50,000 watts.
Sounded like a million. That's what they used to say. 50,000 watts. Sounded like a million. Yeah.
At each commercial break, we're going to ask a miscellaneous sports trivia question where we're giving away vacations to the first email with the correct answer. The vacations are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, and those vacations are free. Their only request is a $100 cleaning fee to cover the housekeeping expenses. Check them out at lighthouseresortmarina.com. And also go to Sports Econ 101 and click on the paintball icon for 85% off.
Sounds good.
It's good. The tickets, instead of being like $30 a piece, are only like $5 a piece.
Sweet.
And the venues are all around the country. So
Sounds
no
like
matter
fun.
where you're located, just go on Sports Econ 101 and click on that paintball icon. All right, this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, providing mortgage investments that are currently yielding over 8%, secured by real estate. It don't get any more conservative than that. You like my English?
Yeah.
I talk gooder sometimes than others.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right, so check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com, and don't touch that dial because you're listening to Sports Econ 101. When we come back, we're going to have guest Brian Murphy on the phone. All right.
So we're all set for the next, for this week, next week, and the week after. Okay.
Yeah, we should check in with each other just to make sure.
Yeah. But because I will be around the following week, but if we don't need to record, that's fine. But I'll,
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian's phone number is this one he gave me.
Yeah, it's, should be answering.
Hello.
Hi, is this Brian?
It is.
This is Edward Brown and Bruce McGowan. How are you?
Hey, Edward, Bruce, how you doing?
Doing
good.
great. Edward's been busy working, sweating. I've been out body surfing, so I'm not complaining. So you got a guy who's champing at the bit, and another one who's just laying back and enjoying the sunny afternoon.
One of us has to work.
That's right.
I had your money, I throw mine away.
There you go.
Okay, Brian, you ready?
I'm ready to rock.
All right, let's do it.
Let's get right into it. Here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Bruce, who do we have on the phone?
We got a friend of mine, a guy who's worked for a number of years at KNBR, the all sports radio station, the sports leader of San Francisco, my old home for 18 years, and a guy who also has made a transition pretty seamlessly from working as a very fine sports writer to working as a broadcaster, although Brian Murphy still does write. He's written several books, and he joins us now. And Brian, I think that the prime topic this summer has been the Olympics, and the U.S. team is, maybe void of some of the huge names. Steph Curry's not there, and LeBron James isn't there. But on paper, this looks like a fun team to watch. I don't think there's any chance that they're going to have any problem winning that gold.
Yeah, U.S. Olympic basketball ever since 1992, as you know quite well, has been just sort of an exercise in dominance, and how dominant and how star-studded the U.S. basketball team can be, going all the way back to the old days when we used to win it all the time with our college kids, and then the huge transition made after that '88 shame when we won bronze in Seoul, South Korea. And it's like ever since then we've been sort of smashing an ant with a sledgehammer. It's kind of our response to the problem was there was a fly on the wall, so we got a flamethrower.
Well, don't you remember back in what was it, '72 when we lost to the Russians?
Oh my goodness!
That
It
was
was a wee
terrible.
lad then, but I certainly read about it as a young man, and that is obviously one of the most iconic and epic Olympic stories ever. I do believe those silver medals remain in a vault in Switzerland, right?
Wow.
Okay.
Did not know that.
I think they do. It was so hard watching that over and over again. Anyway, you have to go back to looking at archives to see what happened.
Frank Gifford was the play-by-play announcer of all things for that
Right?
for that gold medal. Yeah, for that game, and it was a freak play. It was a long pass to a guy named Alexander Beloff, who somehow got behind the defense, took it in one motion, laid it in with about half a second.
But that's after we had won it twice.
After they'd won it twice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, we got to keep on doing this until Russia wins.
Hey, so much talk, Brian.
Yeah, well, I don't think we'll have any of those problems. The short answer to this whole question is that the U.S. would be prohibitive favorites even without Steph and LeBron, and obviously it centers around Kevin Durant, the new Warrior, as the best player on the team, and it flows from there.
Excuse me for interrupting, but
right.
There is a little bit of pressure on them though to make sure that they dominate every team.
Yeah.
In a way.
They got to win by 30 points or something. Don't you think, Brian? If they don't win convincingly, it's going to be sort of tainted in a way.
There is that strange, bizarre pressure, quote unquote, to win every game by 30. And we were just talking about this today on our show about are there any countries out there that can come within a toll call? And theoretically there are. I mean, you look at France is one name that comes to mind because they have a number of NBA players led by Tony Parker of the San Antonio Spurs and Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz. So. And then Lithuania has, and I always have trouble pronouncing his name, Valanciunas. Anyway, tough players. Lithuania, France, Spain, of course, with Marc Gasol, Pau Gasol, though one of them, I believe, is injured. So you look at different countries that have half a roster, but like, for example, if you just take France, and I threw you, Gobert and Boris Diaw and Nick Batum and Tony Parker, those are fine four NBA players, or four fine NBA players. Well, great. On the other side, I have 12 NBA All-Stars, essentially. So, even the teams, the countries that are coming with a shred of NBA talent are going up against Harrison Barnes wasn't an All-Star, but the point is rather clear when Draymond Green and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson are on the court. So, they have to perform. And I saw a quote from Draymond Green in the paper. He said we want to smash every team.
Whoa.
They sort of set the standard for themselves, and we'll see if they fill it.
It's interesting you mentioned Draymond Green, but I want to get back to Kevin Durant. So much talk here in the Bay Area. Everybody's excited about having him come aboard to make a great team even better. But nationally, there's been a lot of backlash for him leaving Oklahoma City kind of just when they're on the verge of maybe establishing something. What's your read on it, Brian? Because you cover local sports, but you kind of got a good view of what's happening nationally as far as Kevin Durant's is concerned, and what is he going to have to do to keep from being sort of a villain, so to speak, in the NBA?
Well, I'm going to have to admit, I am quite surprised by the reaction. I really do admit this. I mean, obviously some of it is colored by my experiences in the Bay Area with the Warriors and knowing what a generally solid group of guys these are. I mean, we've all been around athletes and teams, Bruce, and we've been in locker rooms and we've been through some surly teams like the Barry Bonds Giants, et cetera, et cetera. But for us to watch this Warriors rise under Steve Kerr and Steph Curry and that crew for 2 years, I think for the most part we've been wowed by not just how good they are, but B, how much we've enjoyed interacting with all of them. They really have been a pleasant team to be around and a pleasant team to watch play basketball. I never once saw them as villains. Now, of course, anytime you win in America, the more you win, the more you put yourself in a bullseye, a la Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, a la LeBron James and kind of wherever he goes. But LeBron James going to Miami was a different deal entirely in the sense that he had this huge run-up, this television show, and then this dry ice and spotlight and hydraulic press conference in Miami where they promised all these championships. It was the height of arrogance. Not only that, he arranged with another guy, Chris Bosh, from Toronto. So it was a really orchestrated deal. Kevin Durant is one guy who's never really been a villain anywhere he's gone. He's always been considered a great guy. The only blip in his career was last year. He got a little cranky with the media at the All-Star game, but even then was sort of understandable. He was defending some players as some teammates of his. So I've been really shocked to see that a guy like Kevin Durant, who's generally been viewed as a good soldier, a great player, and an interesting guy. Hell, his MVP speech when he cried thanking his mom, remember the famous line, "You the real MVP," was one of the most heartfelt. The only speech better was Michelle Obama as a Democratic national speaker, right?
Yeah.
So he comes with all that baggage, or baggage is the wrong word. He comes with all that rep of being such a good guy, going to a team of guys who have been very likable, other than Draymond Green kicking people in the private parts. That's the biggest sin the Warriors have committed. So that's my way of saying that. I am really surprised at the backlash on Kevin Durant and all that. I mean, it really. I'm sort of still having trouble processing it. And he was a free agent. If he had gone to the Celtics, would this have been the same reaction? If he had gone to the Spurs, would this have been?
You know, honestly, I think it is because it's the whole idea of you're going away from a team that is kind of on the cusp of winning, just so that you can try to win something. I mean, I'm not feeling that obviously because as a Warrior fan, I'm very very happy and he is a good guy. But I can kind of see the rest of the country, especially in Oklahoma City, going, oh great. We get our best player just saying he wants to chase a ring.
Yeah.
I guess I think back to the only analogy was Jason Giambi left a up and coming A's team that had kind of come out of nowhere, the Moneyball A's. And of course, we weren't calling them the Moneyball A's then, but the Oakland A's were kind of that low budget team that had come out of nowhere and really threatened in 2000 and 2001, and then he upped and left for the New York Yankees, and that was sort of the only thing I can kind of compare it to. He was a lovable guy, Giambi, and the A's were sort of a lovable team, and the Yankees, of course, are the big behemoth. But I don't see the Warriors as the Yankees in that analogy either. So, I mean, I guess I get it a little bit, but it's not like the Warriors have been some dynasty lording over the NBA for years. You know what I mean?
Good point.
Yes, anyway, I'm surprised by it, but it's the reality now. He and the Warriors are going to have to deal with it.
Brian Murphy from KNBR, All Sports Radio in San Francisco, joining us. I got to ask you, Brian, you love all sports, but I know when you were a sports writer with the Chronicle, your primary sport that you covered, and the one that you seem to love the most, was golf. And I know that you're a terrific golf writer. Do you still follow the sport closely? Do you go to any of the big events? And what is it about golf that has always captivated you?
Well, that's a great question, Bruce. Thanks. It is kind of because at one time Marty Lurie, our mutual friend, who's the first baseball host on KNBR on weekends, he said to me, because I knew him when he did the A's pre and post game, and Marty has that way about him of being very direct, kind of Brooklyn guy, and he said to me, he goes, "You're doing a good job with this golf thing, but it's a cult, Murph." It's a cult.
That's funny. Hey, Brian Murphy, stay with us. And by the way, when you say KNBR, you got to say KNBR. The
sports. Yeah, we'll talk more about the golf in just a second.
Just a second. Yeah, we're going to cut to a break here. All right, so here's our first trivia question. And Brian, the way that we do this, I'm going to ask the question. If you know the answer, don't say anything. You can answer when we come back from break, all right? We want to leave the audience in suspenders here. Okay, which professional athlete was voted MVP in his sport 9 times during the 1980s? All right, the first email with the correct answer is going to win that free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com the answer to that question. Don't touch that dial because Sports Econ 101 will be right back. All right.
Brian, was it Wayne Gretzky?
It was Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
Very good.
Did you have that one? I'm kind of.
That would have been my guess, but I didn't want to spoil it.
Yeah,
no.
We'll let you answer. I'm saving the file now, so now you can say.
It's kind of funny. I worked in New York the year that the Islanders were just starting that great run of, I think it was 4 titles in a row, and Gretzky and the Oilers came in, and I think they beat him in the conference finals that year. Gretzky put on a show, and he was, at the time, I think he was only about, maybe 19 years old, and he looked kind of skinny, but he was just, there was something about the way he moved on the ice. So we could talk a little bit about that too.
Because you don't go where the puck is, you go where it's going.
You get your nap in, I hope. So that's important.
I did.
Good.
I got to pick up my son at hoop camp at 3 o'clock.
Oh, okay. We'll get you out of here by then.
Yeah, let's do a quick second here. Here we go.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Here was our first trivia question. Which professional athlete was voted MVP in his sport 9 times during the 1980s?
Well, I know that answer, but I'm going to let Brian take a shot at it.
Well, it's kind of funny because we went to break talking about my sport that's a cult, and that sport is golf. And I've always thought of this sport a little bit as a cult for Californians, and it's hockey.
Oh,
I think it's Wayne Gretzky.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, 9 times in the 1980s. That's
9
much,
times?
That's almost 3 every year.
Wow. I was.
Guys, I think of that Sports Illustrated cover at the end of '89, '90. It said they dominated the '80s, and it was 3 faces. It was Joe Montana, Magic Johnson, and Wayne Gretzky.
Never forget that one. Yeah.
So Gretzky, I think basically anytime you hear a question where the record is like outlandish, you have 2 guesses. It's either Babe Ruth or Wayne Gretzky.
or Muhammad Ali.
You're talking about golf?
Yeah, hockey, as a native Californian, hockey has never been in my blood. And it's always been an uphill slog to try to grasp it and understand it.
You have to grow up with it. Yeah, you have to grow up with it. But we were talking earlier about golf, and is there any possibility that Tiger Woods is going to come back and be competitive again? It just seems like he's lost whatever edge he had because of physical deterioration. Maybe he doesn't have
women.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, you're a lot closer to the sport than I am, and Edward, what's your take on why Tiger dropped off the radar so precipitously?
So what? How much time we got? I mean, it is seriously one of. It's a story that we're in the midst of right now, and I think in a way we haven't even wrapped our minds around the enormity of the fall from grace for Tiger Woods. I don't think you can overstate it, because you could really make an argument that he's the greatest winner maybe in the history of American sports. I know I open myself to argument. Our mutual friend Bruce Jenkins once said to me, no way, Bill Russell with Olympic gold and NBA gold and NC2A gold and all that. And other golf people would say, what are you even talking about? Jack Nicklaus has more majors than Tiger does. But if you talk about what they call, a stat they never talk about in golf is win percentage. And that is just the amount of the amount of events you've entered in. And Tiger's is staggering.
What is it?
It is so good. Oh, I don't know. I don't even know the number because it changes all the time.
Yeah.
Again, it's such an obscure number. It's something that people don't even really talk about.
Sure.
It was once figured out by a colleague of mine, and he won something like 25 to 30% of the tournaments entered, and that's higher than anybody ever.
That's
well, the other thing, Brian, is the fact that
the greatest winner I ever saw. But guys, the reasons for his fall are just so stunning, and I mean it's hard to describe. It's physical and it's mental. And the short answer to your question is no. I don't think he'll ever come back. I believed it for a long while, and now I finally believe that he will never come back to that. I'm not sure if he'll ever. I mean, I think he will play competitive golf again, but never.
Not the same.
He'll never win another major.
Well, the interesting thing, no offense to Bill Russell, but that's a team sport. Tiger Woods.
Well,
you got to do it all.
Objective argument. It's a fun barstool argument to throw out there. Because you could talk about, individual, Al Order throwing the discus in the Olympics, Michael Phelps, you can talk about all sorts of different.
Bob Beamon.
Hey, one name that always comes to mind is Rocky Marciano, who I don't think was ever defeated in the ring. Yeah. So.
Right, see what I mean? It's a good barstool argument already.
Yeah, but those guys back then were wussies.
Yeah. Well, Brian Murphy is the kind of a guy you'd want to sit next to in the bar because he's so enthusiastic and so positive about sports, and you have to be that way. Anybody who has worked in morning drive radio knows that the energy level has to be there, and it's not easy to summon up those reserves when it's 3:30 in the morning and you're getting up at 3 o'clock and you're having a cup of coffee or bleary-eyed.
And excuse me, you get these crazy callers calling in.
Well, sometimes.
It's funny, like Salty, right? From calling in.
Salty Ballfield.
Actually, with another rant. Well, thanks, Bruce, for that comment. I appreciate it. It is, I have to say, it's definitely a different deal. Waking up every single morning now and having to answer that bell. But first of all, it's your job. You have to. You got to put food on your kid's table, so you got to provide. But I've always kind of been able to summon up, for whatever reason, I've always had a lot of energy. And I asked my grade school teachers, I used to get caught talking in school a lot. So some would call it just being a motor mouth, and others would say, oh, he has good morning radio energy. So,
well, coming from the print business, which has been going through some major overhaul and a lot of consolidation, I mean, you made that transition fairly seamlessly. I know you love to still write, but was it a difficult choice when you had to say, okay, I'm going to get out of this field that I've been involved with from the time I've been in high school to suddenly doing something that I kind of like and I'm not too bad at, but this is not what I had signed up for originally.
Yeah, it was an extremely difficult choice, but it really was. And there were a number of factors that went into it. Among them, trying to start a family and getting off the road and trying to make a little bit more dough in this very expensive Bay Area and having a chance to kind of do something totally different and take a leap of faith. And I actually thought I could do both for a long, long time too. And the Chronicles said, no, you can't do both. And then they were right in the end. And in your intro, you said I do still write, and I do still try to write. And I did a Yahoo golf column all the way up to last year. And I had to finally retire that because of coaching and being a daddy and all that stuff. But I do hope to continue to write. And, our KNBR.com website has me writing a couple columns a week, etc. But hopefully a couple more books down the road because writing has always been my first love, and I still love it. I'm last guy, you and I, Bruce, last guys to get a newspaper and read it.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I published a bunch of articles, mostly in the 80s. They used to pay me $1,000 an article.
Wow.
Doing some financial.
Well, let me tell you what, KNBR.com's not paying that.
No. Literally, in the last few years, I had to donate to various financial publications.
It's sad. I mean, I think it's a real loss when the joy of a sports page is a tremendous, profound joy, and I think the kids who are growing up, and even adults who are just settling for what they get on their phone, missing out on the true spiritual experience of a morning sit with a sports page.
I could not agree with you more. It's part of my ritual. I get up in the morning, I have my coffee and toast, and sit there and read the Sporting Green from cover to cover. It's still a pretty good paper. Still
Lick
got
your
some
fingers and turn the page.
Yeah,
right?
turn the page. It's interesting. Brian and I actually unwittingly collaborated. I was in a much more modest role. I did a CD which had a lot of old highlights and little stories, and Brian wrote the text for this wonderful book about the Giants' first 50 years. Which, how do you do that, and also with a limited amount of space because they wanted to have more photos and kind of the sidelight things that are going to attract people's attention. How do you figure out which stories to tell? Because there's so many good ones.
Yeah, that's a great question. That was a difficult. Who knows if you did tell the right ones? I don't know if I did. You try to think of the major things that happened throughout the history, and then try to build around that. Make sure you talk to the principal people, and obviously Willie Mays would be top of that list, and Willie McCovey would be right behind him.
Well, as long as you didn't get sued, you did it well.
Well, it was more of a joyful remembrance than it was a scandalous tell-all, is what it was. But Bruce's CD was awesome. He minimizes his role. The audio, as we all know, we're doing radio right now, that the radio and baseball is one of the great combinations in the history of American culture. So Bruce's collection of those highlights is truly valuable.
Well, and of course, Willie Mays is such a big part of that. What was it like dealing with Willie Mays? Because we've known him for a while, but he can be a bit standoffish. But did he let his hair down with you?
Especially with me, I didn't know him. I mean, guys like Bob Stevens, who were around for the guy who used to cover the Giants back in the 50s and 60s. So I had the disadvantage of being totally of a generation he didn't know and understand. So he was certainly guarded in some ways, and I understand it. I get it. He spent his whole life. I always think about the racial implications too of a guy who grew up in the segregated South, playing in the Negro Leagues for the Birmingham Black Barons, being suspicious of the white media. I do understand it. It's a predominantly white media, and I understand he kind of passed that on to Bobby Bonds and even down to Barry Bonds in some ways. So I get it. I understood. I didn't expect him to be my best friend, but he donated his time generously. And I had a really neat experience with him recently. Phil Valley Little League, where I live. Bruce, you're a Marin guy. We had a tribute to the Negro Leagues this year. We had the president of the Negro League Baseball Museum and fly out and speak to the kids. And we brought him by AT&T Park and met with Willie Mays, who, like I said, was a Birmingham Black Bear. And I saw a whole different side of Willie. Because I got along with Willie and my friend Bob Kendrick, president of the Negro Leagues, and Willie glowed with him. He was warm and joyful.
Sweet.
And that say hey voice you hear, that giggle.
That high-pitched laugh.
really lucky to be a fly on the wall for that.
That's the great thing about the personalities. I think we don't realize that when we first get into broadcasting or writing is we get to know these people individually. I remember the first time I met Ken Griffey Jr. He was a 19, 20-year-old kid. And you remember Tiny Felder, who played for the Giants and is a Bay Area native, who was now at that time was Seattle, had been with the Giants, introduced me to him. So his Ken Griffey Jr.'s dad was very, very distrustful of the media. And as you mentioned, Brian Murphy, our guest, how Barry Bonds sort of took on his dad's distrustful demeanor towards the media. And Ken was like that too. But because Tiny brokered a sort of an opening for me, I never had any problem and always was able to sit down with him over the years and have a nice conversation. So it really makes a difference. You mentioned your relationship with the Negro League Museum and how that kind of helped get you in a little bit better with Willie Mays. So you kind of have to feel people out a little bit here in this profession.
And how old is the guy who is the president of the Negro League?
Well, he's
He's kind of interesting. He's a man who got involved with Buck O'Neill back in the old days, and or not in the old days, just in the 2000s, and then he wound up getting stewardship of it. So I'd say he's in his early 50s.
Well, 2000s are the old days now, aren't they? No, that's kind of a scary thing. Well, and another thing that you've done that I've really enjoyed is that you listen to Brian on the air, and he's very enthusiastic, he's very energetic, he's very positive, and there's so much sarcasm and negativity in broadcasting, and it's true, it happens in radio too, it's part of the entertainment package, but you've managed to stay away from that for the most part and maintain your integrity and attract a good audience, which is not an easy thing to do. How do you keep that going? Because sometimes a lot of us who work in the profession sort of sell out and go the easy route, which is to criticize and to characterize people unfairly, and I've never seen that or heard that from you. Well, I think we've lost him.
Oh, I was going to say.
No, are you still there? You're still there.
I don't know. You have to answer that question when we come back.
Well,
and I know you have to go, so we're going to make this really fast here.
Yeah.
Okay, name
Well,
four.
I appreciate the compliment, Bruce, but it's just a personality. I think it depends on, it's a different personality. Like some of the guys got into writing to be kind of investigative Watergate guys, and other guys, I kind of always got into it just for the stories and the storytelling and the joy of the experience, and that's kind of what always attracted me to sports in the first place, and so I kind of transfer that to my radio thing, which is to relish the stories and the moments that we're in, and so whatever, it's just my philosophy, for better or for worse, and so I hope it continues to work, and I think there's a lot of us out there who are in it and enjoy the sports and the happiness of the events that we cover. Of course, we have to hit the negative stuff too, but for the most part, it's good. Yeah.
Brian, unfortunately, we have to cut to a break, and I know you've got to go pick up your son. So we're going to thank you very much for joining us on Sports Econ 101.
Okay, guys.
Great talking to you, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll ask the question when we come back. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Oh boy, that was a little too long. But that's okay. We'll just deal with it. All right, ready?
Yes.
Anything specific you want to cover?
How much time do we have?
It's our long segment.
Oh, okay.
13 minutes.
Yeah. Let's talk a little baseball.
Okay.
We'll talk a little bit about trading deadlines
And this guy Chris Sale.
yeah, tearing up his.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. He's a little bit of a character. Yeah. Okay.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here along with Bruce McGowan. And we didn't get a chance to ask the trivia questions, so we're going to ask it right now.
Sure.
Name 4 popular sports that begin with the letter W.
4 popular sports that
While
begin.
you're thinking about
Okay.
that, we'll still allow people to email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer. And the first email with the correct answer is going to win the free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. And Bruce is writing right now. So what do you write?
Well, wrestling.
Wrestling, that's one of them.
Water polo.
Water polo is one of them.
Weightlifting.
Weightlifting, very good. And what's the last one? It's I don't know if it's really considered competitive though.
Okay.
Maybe.
Something like curling. Well, curling's
No,
competitive.
but you should know it because you play in the water a lot.
Is it it's a water game?
It's in the water, definitely in the water.
Something to do with wave surfing or windsurfing.
Windsurfing.
Windsurfing, which is very popular by the way in Maui. On the North Island, there's a place called Hukipa. I've done a lot of surfing there. In the morning, the surf is very good in the afternoon. The wind kicks up. The surf is not as good, but it's terrific for windsurfing.
Yeah, I've seen these guys with the kite surfing and stuff. That's scary.
It's amazing. Well, I was out surfing today, and it was small, but there were a lot of guys in the water here in Northern California. You wouldn't think that because we get sharks, we get cold water, but it's amazing how the sport is grown.
When are you going to enter the Mavericks?
No, I'm way past that. I never was. That's a special. That is a special kind of unique sort of a focus. You have to be not only a great surfer, but you have to be a little unhinged to do that. I mean, you're talking about 50-foot surf, and if you get buried by one of those waves, you can get killed, and it has happened. There was a guy named Mark Fu about 22 years ago who was killed, and he was one of the best big wave riders. And the wave that killed him really wasn't that big, but what apparently happened was he got knocked out by his board, and so he was unconscious underwater and did not, nobody saw him.
You do it with a hand ski.
Well, I body surf, which is different. I use fins, I use a hand ski, and it's a purer form of wave riding. There's nothing between you and the water. And to me, it's the greatest thing. Today I was feeling really uptight and nervous and on edge about a bunch of things, and I got in the water within 20 minutes. I just kind of got in. I know it's well, it is. It's the motion of the water. It's the sound of the waves. It's the feeling of this incredible ocean, which has a power, which takes you in its embrace, and you embrace it. And the thing about the ocean is, it's always going to be more powerful. So the best way to enjoy it is to get in tandem with it, and that's not easy to do.
Now you do it with fins also.
Oh, you have to have fins.
I was going to say that really helps.
You have to have fins. If you're just
stay ahead of it, right?
Yeah, if you're just fiddling around in shallow water, in waist deep water or neck deep water. But I go out, in 10, 12 feet. It depends on where the break is happening. The place I go now, which I go a lot in Marin County, it's usually about 7 feet deep. You want the water to be deep though, because when the wave breaks, and if it buries you, you don't want to hit the bottom of the ocean. You don't want to hit the sand.
I want to be able to touch I want to touch the bottom at all times.
Well, then you're not going to be able to find too many places like that unless you go to Southern California or Hawaii. Here in Northern California, there are just not that many places. There are a few. Stinson Beach.
Did you wear a full wetsuit?
I do. I do wear a full wetsuit because you need it. The water temperature rarely gets over 60 here in Northern California. And we do have sharks, but there have only been, I think, 7 attacks in the last 50 years and 1 fatality. So your chances of I've seen one shark, actually I saw one, I didn't see it, but I heard about it. I was outside when out of the water, just getting out of the water, when it breached a little 8-foot, and I say little, an 8-foot baby white breached with a salmon in its mouth.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is, they're not aggressive. They don't have to be. They're the wolves of the ocean. So there's so much for them to eat out there. There are sea lions, there are seals, there are other fish. Why would they want to go after something skinny in a wetsuit that tastes like rubber? Not very often.
Well, that's right. They don't like that. They bite into it, then they'll let go because they don't like the taste.
They're not like the movie Jaws, where you had this relentlessly aggressive creature that was gargantuan sized and would eat people up in one bite. That's not what a great white shark is all about.
Yeah. Also, why would they come in shallow water if they don't have to?
They don't have to.
Yeah.
And
that's the worst thing for them is to get beached.
Well, and not to get off on a tangent about this, but oceanographers have now been able to tag great white sharks and have found out about their migratory patterns. For instance, in the wintertime, they leave the Bay Area and California, and a lot of them head out to a place about halfway between here and Hawaii, which is about 1,500 miles out, and they go down to levels of sometimes over a mile deep because they have these incredibly thick, hard skins that are made of, it's almost like the material between your joints, cartilage. And they can survive under intense pressure, and that's where they apparently mate and meet other sharks, because they're pretty lone creatures, most of them. But they've only been able to learn this in the last 10 or 12 years.
What I think is kind of fascinating about that is I saw, I guess it was the movie Blackfish,
Uh-huh.
where they were talking about the fact of killer whales and
Right.
how if you don't know any better, like I didn't know any better, I would just think, okay, one killer whale, another killer whale, doesn't matter whether they're one part of the world or another. But it's just like us. People in France speak French, and people in Germany speak German, and killer whales don't necessarily have the same language unless they are in the same pond.
Well, that's a different creature entirely. That's a mammal. They're very intelligent. We don't know how intelligent sharks are. They don't appear to be that particularly bright, and they're the closest thing really to ancient dinosaurs from the Jurassic period or the Triassic period or whatever it was. They haven't changed for thousands of years. Whales are amazing. I've been out in the water with a couple of whales have gone by, a pilot whale, one time an orca, and it's an awesome spectacle to see this incredibly huge creature just suddenly breach the water. It makes you realize and makes you very humble.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you're in the water, you kind of, your heart goes in your mouth there just for a second.
Well, it's kind of funny. I'm not any big macho type guy, but I gotta say that when we've had shark sightings down back here at Stinson Beach,
Sure.
and I've gone in the water, and what I've done, and again, I don't go in below my neck. I want to be able to touch it.
Now that's a normal feeling. Yeah.
But the thing is, some of these sharks sometimes will get in shallow water.
Sure they will. Yeah.
So I literally have made a fist, and I'm looking in the water, and anything that's going to get close to me,
That's a good idea.
I figure I just hit it hard on the nose, and hopefully don't break my skin so I bleed,
Right.
and they'll go away.
Well, that happened actually to a kid about 15, 18 years ago at Stinson Beach. He was on a boogie board. The shark grabbed a hold of him, wasn't biting down, but was just holding him. And the kid, he was about 16-year-old, just started pounding on the shark in the face and the eyes. Finally hit him in the eye, and the shark let him go. And he had a lot of stitches and had to go in for some surgery, but it was luckily not life-threatening. He didn't have any veins that were cut, but it had to be traumatic. I mean, can you imagine being in the grip and looking into the face of this? It's almost like a prehistoric monster is trying to eat you. I mean, it's
sharp as teeth.
Talk about the most primal fear.
Yeah.
So you temper when you go in the water the idea that that's a possibility, but I always worry more about the size of the waves, getting pulled out by a really strong current, just not having enough energy to swim back in.
Have you ever gotten pulled out?
Oh, many times. What you do with a rip current, and anybody who has been in the water knows about these. They're really sort of like channels of water, almost like rivers that have to find a way back out. There's too much water close to shore, so they're just funneling in the deepest channel. And if you get caught in one, the best thing to do is to swim across it. In other words, swim parallel to the shore, and it's like swimming across the river, and eventually you'll get out of it. Not always, but usually you will.
Yeah, I remember my son and I were in Hawaii, and he was literally very close to purposely jumping off about a 60-foot cliff.
Wow.
And, because he loves doing stuff like that.
Sure.
And I looked at it, I said, Christian, those waves down below are really strong. Yeah. I said, you'd have to go, and I pointed out, I said, you're going to have to swim about a mile straight out in order to
clear the break.
Exactly.
Probably.
And I said, I tell you, I go, if you dive, if you jump, I go, I'm not going in after you. There's no reason for two of us to die.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think you have to, like in any sport, whether it's extreme mountaineering or going down a river or slot canyon climbing where they go in between these narrow spots in the rocks, it's almost like you have to go into a Zen mode. And I think that actually relaxes the human mind. As I said before, I find it therapeutic. It's I'm in a much better mood. My wife knows that I'm a much happier guy. My daughter knows I'm much easier to be around when I've been in the water. And so she never, ever tells me, you can't go in the water. I think maybe once she said, we have plans today. If I have to go in the water, I go in the water. It's my religion, I guess you could say.
And if you come home cranky, she just draws a bath for you and you're back in the water again.
Back in the water again. That can help a little too.
Okay, so moving on to a little bit of other sports.
Sure.
Baseball. So what's the deal with this guy, Chris Sale? He decides the uniform, the throwback uniform is uncomfortable.
Something like that. He just
popped it to shreds.
I don't know. I mean, he just, went off on a tangent there, and that's a nice way of putting it, and apparently cut up all the uniforms and was suspended for 5 games. Now he's on the trading block. It's really a sad story. The White Sox were one of the great stories for the first month or so of baseball. They had the best record, but they've come crashing back down to earth, as have a number of teams. That happens during the course of a long season. I don't know what the problems are between him and the front office, but I get the feeling there is some enmity there, Edward, between Chris Sale and the front office. Again, I know nothing about the specifics, but obviously he's very upset about something. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done what he did.
Supposedly, what I heard was, or what I read, I guess is better, that he was upset because the uniform was uncomfortable, and for him to have to pitch in that uniform, he wasn't going to be at his best.
Well, they were the old style uniforms with the high collars from the early 19th century, and maybe he had a point, but there's a way to deal with that. It's called diplomacy, and you talk about it ahead of time and make some adjustments. Maybe they could have made some adjustments to that uniform. They didn't. Exactly. He went off on a tangent, ripped them up, or cut them up with a scissors. I'm not sure exactly what. And then there were some other issues involved, but he is not in good with management. They suspended him for 5 games. It sounds like maybe there's some things going on behind the scenes between him and the club. Maybe he's having some personal problems. I don't know the specifics, but it's a bad deal.
I mean, you got to think that baseball is still a business.
Oh, yeah.
He is an employee
Yes.
of the club, and you just don't go into your employer and just start destroying equipment.
No, it's just not a smart thing to do. You know, it's fascinating. There are a lot of characters in baseball, a lot of personalities, and some of them. I remember dealing with a guy named Albert Bell, who was a terrific hitter, but one of the most recalcitrant, unpleasant individuals I'd ever met. And I remember one time I figured, okay, let's try to get him to talk. So I went up to him and asked him a question. He sort of mumbled something that I didn't hear him. So I asked the question again, and he mumbled a little bit louder. And again, I couldn't make it out because he was either not interested in telling me face to face, or just that was how he communicated. Finally, I asked him a third time. He looked up at me with this hateful stare, and he said, "What part of no don't you understand?"
I said, well, I didn't even hear the word no. Hello.
That's the most unfortunate word in the human language, isn't it? The English language. N-O. So I kind of laughed. I kind of laughed, and he sort of chuckled too, because then I thought, well, hey, that's a good sign. The guy's got a little bit of a sense of humor. Yeah. That's a good thing, There have been some other athletes like that. Kirk Gibson cursed me out a number of times. I never was able to get along with him, and I didn't realize he had some demons that he was dealing with off the field. He handled them very well, to his credit, but he was not a pleasant individual. There were some other players too. I remember Chris Chambliss and Pete Vukovich were very nice guys, but extremely shy. Both guys, when I interviewed them, looked away the entire time to the other side of the room.
Wow.
But I was able to get the mic close enough, so I was able to ask them the question, but they never made eye contact, and they were very nervous. So it was strange.
And did you use the word reclusive?
Oh, I just said recalcitrant. Somebody who is just, it's somebody who just is, impervious to change and doesn't want to have anything to do with you, and is unpleasant and, always kind of at odds with people.
6 years of high school, I never heard that word.
Yeah, you're supposed to use the human language in radio. I stand accused. I try never to, unless I know exactly what that word means, and I hope I've used that properly.
Well, I should have spent 3 more years in high school. Okay, which 3 Major League Baseball players hit the most home runs during the decade of the 1990s?
Ah, good question. All right.
Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We're going to come back with some closing comments.
I should know that one.
You'll know at least one of the players.
Let's see.
I've never heard that word before.
Ah, yeah. Recalcitrant.
That's all you highfalutin people in high society.
There you go. I got a bunch of them here. Got about 4 guys here.
Okay. That's not fair. There's only room for 3 answers here.
Okay. I'll have to narrow it down to 3 then.
See, when I was in school, they just made me spell words like boat, cat.
They didn't give you the CA either. Spot you the CA.
No. Yeah, that's right.
That's what they said about Terry Bradshaw. It's so dumb they had to spot on the CA and cap.
Yeah.
Poor Terry Bradshaw.
I mean, to be a quarterback, you have to have some brains.
Yeah. He's a very sharp guy.
Yeah, I would.
He just had that old country boy kind of personality.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Question for you, Bruce. Which 3 Major League Baseball players hit the most home runs during the decade of the 1990s?
I'm going to guess Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., and either Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa.
You got 2. You got
2 of them?
2 of them, correct. Bonds.
Griffey Jr.
Griffey Jr.
And McGwire.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, I remember Sosa had kind of a surge.
Yeah.
Later in the 90s, but. That was, 1998, even though those guys were using steroids, that was really how the game of baseball was saved, that great home run chase with those 2 players. And that was
Roger Maris, I remember that.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And the Yankees, of course, won the World Series again that year, beat the San Diego Padres. They had a great team. There were a lot of great stories that year, but the McGwire-Sosa home run chase just electrified the nation, captivated the baseball world.
Well, it was great because they were both hitting a lot of home runs.
Yeah.
And the sad thing for Sammy is he also beat the record.
Yes.
it doesn't matter because someone else beat the record and beat you too.
I was in St. Louis for a Giants series. He had 4 home runs, McGuire did, in that series. And I remember one of them tied the game up in the 9th inning. So some dramatic home runs as well.
All right, we're going to cut out for today. Here's our thoughts for the day. It's important that your inside character is bigger than your outside persona. A sports car with a lawnmower engine won't work.
You think?
Yeah. And every game is an opportunity to measure yourself against your own potential.
There you go. I like that
I always
one.
like to come out with these good ones for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Really
Who
thought-provoking.
said that?
You know, Mr. Anonymous.
Yeah.
He says a lot of things.
Okay,
Mr.
all right.
All right.
Fair enough.
Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and giving away more free vacations for answering sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long. And there's your tagline.
There you go. I got it. All right. That was fun.
Yeah.
Brian's great. He's very, very enthusiastic.
Yeah, he's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's a Murph and Mac, right?
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, Mac is sort of the weak sister